Hey, thanks for tuning in. In this video, we're going to talk about the kinds of people who are leaving the US and other Western countries right now, why they're leaving, and why you might also want to consider moving abroad forever if you live in a Western country right now. All right, let's dive in. Recent data from the United States shows a huge increase in the people who have been leaving that country to live abroad forever. In fact, 2025 numbers show that the United States had a net negative migration for the first time since 1930. This means more people left the US than came into the country. This is a big deal. A recent Gallup poll asked girls and women from the ages of 15 to 45 if they could live abroad forever, would they? And 40% said yes. Now, this is up from just 10% when the same group of people were asked the same question in 2014. So that's a 30% increase. When it comes to the men, 19% of the men said that they would also live abroad forever if they had the opportunity. That's men from 15 to 45, boys and men from 15 to 45 years of age. These are alarming numbers for a country that would tell anyone that that country is the best place in the world to live. Clearly something's happening. So the people leaving the United States right now are not just digital nomads, and they're not just retirees either, although the retirees are still leaving in order to try and make their retirement go further. The people who are adding to these numbers now are people that would say they're just normal, regular people, right? People in the middle of their careers, people in their 30s or 40s or even 50s like me, people with young families. These are the people who are now leaving the United States to try to find a better life overseas. Here's a list of the most common reasons given by people who are leaving the United States right now. High cost of living, high cost of housing and healthcare with limited access to that healthcare. The political climate, reduced trust in institutions, inequality and discrimination, reproductive rights, lack of work-life balance, gun violence. Obviously, the high cost of living and the high cost of healthcare were probably at the top of most people's lists when they decided to leave the United States. I know they definitely were for me, along with a lot of those other things that I just mentioned. Australia right now doesn't have a lot of the problems that the United States is suffering, but it does have a pretty serious housing crisis. Right now, if you're trying to rent an apartment in Australia, the prices are just crazy. Buying a house is just insanely expensive. It's totally unaffordable for many Australians. If you're in Australia, maybe you're feeling that, and maybe you're also thinking that you might be able to have a more affordable life with better work-life balance somewhere else. Those are two of the biggest reasons for probably all of us, but there's a lot more reasons than just cost of living. Let's talk about them now. Reason number one, finding meaning in your life and becoming the best possible version of yourself. If you're living in the West right now, you're probably working way too much. You're probably stressed out about paying your bills, raising your kids if you have them. You probably don't have any time to see friends. You probably have no hobbies. Maybe you have difficult work relationships or toxic family relationships. Look, life is very difficult. In a situation like that, it's very hard to find any kind of meaning, and it's essentially impossible to work on yourself and become the best version of yourself. For a start, you're going to have a much better work-life balance. I mean, off the charts. And I'm talking about people who are still mid-career too. You might be in your 30s or 40s. You're still going to work in your new country, but you're going to work less and you're going to work differently. The work-life balance that I have here in Ecuador is absolutely unimaginable in a place like Minneapolis or Brisbane. It just wouldn't be possible. You'll be able to do things with your life that were impossible in your home country. Maybe because of finances, definitely because of time. Once you've moved to your new country and you've settled in, you're going to be able to do so many different things with your new life. You're going to be able to travel all the time. You're going to be able to take up new hobbies or dive back into old hobbies that you didn't have time or money for back in your home country. And when you do these hobbies, you'll often pick up secondary hobbies, like maybe you're hiking, and while you're hiking, you start to learn about the local plant life or the local animal life, and you start to really get into that. Or if you're riding bikes, you take your camera with you like I do and get into photography. There's so many things you can do with all your new free time. You're also going to be outside more and doing more physical activity. So you're going to be healthier, you're going to be happier, and you're going to want to actually do all these things. You know, I remember sometimes in the US, I knew that I would have to go for a bike ride. You know, I needed to get some exercise, and I was so tired from work that I had to really force myself to do it. That doesn't happen here in Ecuador. I'm like excited and happy to do all the different things that I do. It'll be like that for you too. So you're going to be healthier. Your healthcare costs are going to be less, like much less. And you're going to have time to go to the doctor and take care of things that maybe you constantly put off in your home country. So many different things you're going to be able to do. It's really difficult to explain just how profoundly your life is going to change when you move out of your busy Western rat race lifestyle. It's an absolutely massive change. It really changes everything. The first few months in your new country are probably going to be quite difficult with lots of challenges, but those challenges make you become a lot more patient and self-aware, less reactive. It's really going to change the way you see yourself and the world. There's also going to be a lot of really positive experiences too. I mean, sometimes absolutely wonderful things happen. Sometimes just these small interactions, but they're great and they leave you feeling great for the rest of your day. So, you know, cumulatively, these things, good and bad, definitely change your mindset. And after years of living in a different country like this, it totally changes who you are. It really does make you the best version of yourself. One of the more obvious things that happens, and certainly something that most people talk about when you live abroad, is that your view of life and humanity will broaden, right? You'll get a much bigger perspective. You're going to broaden your horizon, definitely. That happens. But there's a little more to it, and I want to sort of talk a little more in depth about some of the things that you might experience along these lines. For a start, your home country and your old culture might start to seem a little small, a little trite, right? A little shallow, maybe. And some of the things that maybe annoyed you a little bit back home start to seem really annoying or absolutely unacceptable or even like straight up horrific when you view these things from your new perspective, from your new culture. Likewise, some of the things that maybe you used to enjoy, like some of the traditions and the customs in your home country, might seem a little problematic. So even if you moved home again, your new perspective might make it a little difficult for you to participate in some of these things, right? Some of these traditions might become something that you don't want to be a part of. Maybe you're just absolutely not interested in any of those things anymore. So, you know, this can be a little difficult. If you move abroad and you live abroad for many, many years, then you come home, it's never going to be like it was, right? Everything's going to change. And this can be quite challenging. You might even start to experience these situations even when you just go home to visit family. All of a sudden, everything's different, and all of those traditions, the family customs, might be something that you really struggle with. This kind of thing, this kind of feeling like you don't belong in your own culture, tends to start, or it might even start before you leave. With me, it definitely did. You might even start to feel like your culture, your mainstream culture, isn't talking to you anymore, right? The advertisements, the cultural events, certainly the politics, the movies, right? And the TV shows. Some of these things start to seem just baffling. Like you might find yourself wondering, who is this aimed at? Like who is watching these things? Who is enjoying these things? For me, I remember one of the big ones was mainstream movies out of the US. And I'm sure, I mean, I know I'm not alone in this, but I was just absolutely baffled at the stupidity of some of these movies. And these movies that are so popular, to me, just started to seem so dumb, like so stupid, so next level unintelligent and lowbrow, just excruciatingly stupid. And I couldn't believe it. I remember every time one of these movies would get released and the masses would flock to see it, I just thought, how is this happening? Like, who are the people who are watching these movies, and why are they? Well, the answer is it's everyone, right? It's everyone. Everyone is watching these movies. So, things like that, it might be a sign that really your culture is not suitable. It doesn't fit you anymore. Maybe it really is time for you to move on and find something else. If you're like I was, and I'm guessing you probably are if you're watching this video, you are probably very strict with yourself about being on time. I know I was in Australia and the United States. I was obsessed with being on time. I had to be early. Even if I was like only 5 minutes early, I would be starting to freak out, right? Typically I'd be there like minimum 15 minutes early for whatever. If I was late for something, and this almost never happened, but if I ever was actually late, like for work or something, I would beat myself up about it and think about that and just be really embarrassed about it and uncomfortable and awkward for days, like days after it happened. And I just couldn't stand it. And this was something I was proud of. If you do move overseas, you are going to discover that in many, many countries, the attitude towards being on time is not like that. As I've mentioned several times, I live in Ecuador, and wow, it is a totally different situation down here. People are late for everything all the time. Now, I will admit, this took me a long time to get used to, and at first it would absolutely drive me insane. I couldn't stand it. And, I continued to be like I was in the United States and Australia. I would always show up on time, and no matter who it was, they were always late, and I would be waiting, sometimes 10 minutes, 15 minutes, sometimes much longer. Sometimes much longer than that. I will say that there's been some situations recently where I've been waiting for a friend for like 2 hours. And in those situations, I still get frustrated. But for the most part, if it's like between 10 minutes and half an hour, these days, it doesn't really bother me. I'm okay with it. And this allows me also to be a lot more relaxed with my time and any pressure that I put on myself. It's really surprising how much that affects you and changes your life, changes your whole outlook. Like when I look at, maybe I have a slightly busy schedule for that day. I mean, it doesn't happen very often, but maybe I do. And in the United States, a busy schedule would have stressed me out. I would have been calculating every minute that I needed to do a given task and then be on time for the next task. That just doesn't happen with my life now. It doesn't happen at all. It's really freeing. So this situation with timeliness and punctuality will really change you, and it's quite surprising how good it feels. It's pretty great. Another reason that comes up a lot when I talk to people about why they left a Western country is the comparison game, right? The judgment about what you do for a living. Maybe you've realized the Western standards of success don't really apply to you anymore, and you maybe you never really were interested in that. When you move out, when you remove yourself from that situation, you get away from that constant societal competition, the keeping up with the Joneses and having to impress everybody all the time. Removing yourself from that is a breath of fresh air. Now, I'm not going to say all countries are less judgmental in that respect. Some countries are even worse. Right? There are some countries where they're not only going to ask you about your career and what you do, but they're going to immediately ask you how old you are, right? And are you married? And like really, there's even less personal boundaries in some countries. But here, where I am, in Ecuador and in many Latin American countries, it is a lot more relaxed, and people are a little more interested in who you are rather than your career or your bank account, with a couple of exceptions that involve dating. But I will talk about that maybe in a different video. For now, I'm going to say that most people you meet here are more interested in you as a person, and they're not going to immediately ask you about your job. If they do, it's kind of different. Like here, it comes up sometimes here when I'm talking to taxi drivers, right? The taxi driver, they don't, I tell them that I'm from Australia, that I'm Australian, and they are very interested and surprised to meet me. And, they'll sort of have a little bit of chit chat first, and then they might ask sort of very curiously, they'll say, well, sort of, what are you doing here? What are you doing with your time? Like that. It's more about how you are spending your time. I mean, sometimes they will actually ask, what is your job? But it's a different way. They're more just curious, and it's like they are genuinely interested or even fascinated. Like, what is this guy from Australia or England or the United States, what are they doing here? It's different. It's not judgmental like it is in a big Western country. This is sometimes not such an obvious thing, and maybe you won't even notice it at first, especially if you're not meeting so many locals at first. If your language is not that good yet and you're not really having that many conversations with local people, but eventually you'll notice. So when this will become obvious is when you meet somebody else from the United States or Australia or Great Britain. When you meet somebody like that who's just moved to your same country that you've just moved to, they're going to ask you almost immediately, what do you do? What's your job? Okay, so that's fair enough, right? They want to know how you're making ends meet, what you're doing in this new country. But then they ask a secondary question, and it's almost always, what did you do back home? And then that's when it's really jarring, and you feel that judgmental aspect of the question. You can just tell that's what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to figure out who you were and your value to the culture or society or whatever, or your value as a human being. And that's the difference. You just don't get that when you're talking, or I don't get it when I'm talking to local Ecuadorian people. And in many countries, you're probably not going to get that either. It's really nice. It's quite refreshing. One of the most common reasons that people say they move abroad, but actually you don't hear about it unless you're sort of talking one-on-one with people, is because of toxic family relationships. If you have toxic family members that are, ruining your life or just making it impossible to live a healthy, happy life, I think it is perfectly acceptable to move away from them, to remove your access from them. Especially if you've been trying for years to fix these problems, and obviously these problems are not going to get any better. Moving abroad is actually a great solution to that problem. Now, I know people are going to say, oh, but you're just running away from your problems. Nope. I do not think so. If your family is so bad that they are ruining your life, absolutely it is acceptable to leave and get out and go somewhere where they do not have access to you anymore. It is a legitimate excuse. Why should somebody suffer? Why should somebody live a miserable life and suffer terrible mental health problems because they have an awful family? Why should they do that? Just because they're family? No, I disagree with this. If your family is doing that to you, then it is acceptable to get away from that family. Now, okay, I should say at this point, if you are watching this and you have family members that are violent, if you suffer from any kind of violence right now, then please seek immediate professional help. Call the police, get out, save yourself. But if you're not in a dire emergency like that, then I think planning a move abroad to get away from toxic family members is an acceptable thing to do. And you would be surprised how many people tell you that was at the very top of their list of reasons why they moved abroad. Now, I should say at this point, if any of my family members are watching this is not why I left Australia. I mean, okay, I certainly have some problematic family members, but that's not why I left. I left Brisbane when I was 26, basically because I was bored. I just wanted adventure. I was a young guy and I wanted to go see the world. It's nothing to do with family, okay? So just setting that straight, just in case somebody's I'm sure none of my family watches my videos, but if one of you are watching, it's not your fault. You're not the reason why I'm living in Ecuador, okay? All right, glad we got that out there. I think that about wraps it up. I think these were the main reasons for moving abroad that I wanted to talk about. These are definitely some things that I think you should think about and consider if you're struggling with life in a Western country. If you're thinking about doing this, and if you have some reasons that I didn't talk about, put them in the comments below and we'll talk about them. Maybe I'll do another video. Let's wrap things up. Hey, thanks for watching my video all the way to the end. All right, a little bit about me. My name is Jason Alvey. I'm from Brisbane, Australia. I left Australia when I was 26 years old. I went and lived in London for 2 years. Then I lived in Minneapolis, United States for 22 years. And now, as I'm recording this, I've been living in Ecuador for just over 4 years. Right now I live in Guayaquil, but I've lived in different cities in this country. I've been helping people with questions about living abroad for a long time now. And if you want to see exactly what I do, what services I offer, and the rates that I charge for them, there is a link to my website down below. If you want to check out my photography website, there's a link for that too, as well as a link to my Buy Me a Coffee page. If you really enjoyed this video and you'd like to support me by buying me a coffee, I would really appreciate that. That'd be great. I want to let you know I don't use AI for any of my videos or photography. And if that is as important to you as it is to me, then I want to say thank you for supporting a person who's creative without the use of AI. If you're also a creative person who doesn't use AI, tell me what you do. Maybe I can support you too. Okay, here's the part of my video where I say something crazy. I'm going to ask you to not subscribe to my channel. That's right. Please don't subscribe to my channel unless you are really interested in moving abroad and you really want to watch some of my videos. So here's the thing, if you're maybe a friend of mine and you want to support me by giving me a subscribe, hey, that's really cool, I really appreciate it. But if you subscribe to the channel and then you don't watch any of the videos, that sends the wrong message to the algorithm, and then my videos won't get shown to as many people. So if you really want to support me, maybe you know somebody who is thinking about leaving their home country. Maybe you could share one of my videos with that person. That would be awesome. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Righto, cheers.